Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the Biz World channel, the EMBC network, the works here with your host, Hurricane H. Another day, another show. Excellent discussion today for those of you who are in business and pretty much love marketing and understand or think you understand marketing. And we gotta do some work today with my guy here. My guest is awesome. Today's guest is Kyle Merrick, a creative strategist and a fractional CMO known for helping organizations break through the noise and fix what's really holding them back, their messaging. With a bold approach he calls marketing anarchy, Kyle helps businesses and nonprofits cut through mediocrity, attract attention, and drive real impact. Kyle, welcome to the show, man.
Hurricane, thanks for having me, brother. Pleasure to be here.
This is gonna be fun. I mean, marketing is something I've done as a person. Also, so this is an area that I'm gonna learn some tricks today. I have to say, I mean, I've worked with marketing. I've been in sales and business development, but also led marketing a few times. Obviously, in sales, you always work. Marketing is like your side gig. We're like the cousins and in an operation, so we work together. But marketing is big and it's got a lot of angles. So today you're gonna drive us through the whole 9 yard of how we do it, how we don't do it, how we should be doing it, and all the other stuff. And really, let's cause some anarchy here today.
Right on, man. I like it. It's like I got 13 years as a gymnast, and whenever I tell people that, they're like, "Oh yeah, I did gymnastics like when I was 4." Like that's kind of the equivalent of like we've all done it at some point in our lives.
Yep.
Whether or not we've
Okay.
stuck to it legitimately, that's the question.
Well, let's talk about your story. Like, is that your background? Is that where you started, like in marketing? That's your expertise, and then you figured out things are going wrong. Was it business, and you kind of discovered it's not working, and went the other way?
The business side had to come. Like I had to kind of train myself because I went to school, Miami University. That's the one in Ohio, not Florida. Um, Sometimes I tell people that, and they're like, "Dude, you are way too white for Florida." I'm like, "I know. That's why I went to Ohio." um, but so my degree is in graphic design, and so design, at least at my time, like at the time that I was applying for the program, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the artist's guide to business is essentially like you get paid professionally to art for a living. Like that was the thinking. Needless to say, like I walked into the business school thinking like, okay, like if I could take like a business 101 course, like just, very introductory. Like Miami's got a very reputable business school. And so like a measly old, like, art student from the fine arts school walked in and they literally like laughed me out of the building. So I did not have a proper business mind when I graduated college. Once I got into the real world, it was, straight away graphic designer. And so that was for like individual company doing like email design, like just blow my brains out kind of work because it's the same thing day after day. And it wasn't fulfilling stuff. So I kind of cycled through a number of different corporate companies. It ended up at a cool kind of, it was a design agency. And so they had that marketing agency structure. And so by marketing agency structure, what I mean is essentially numerous different clientele, different kinds of people that we're working with. We're doing different things. We're not executing on the same type of work. So fulfillment wise, that was it. And that exposed me to the beauty of simply just I'm the individual that's my spark is just keep something different, make it interesting, shift it up for me. And then inevitably after a year and a half or so, I just figured, you know what, I still have a whole heck of a lot that I need to learn. And I figured, you know what, let's go freelance. This is going to be the easiest path to learning fast. Now that's a very carefully worded sentence because it is easy to learn and itself, by definition, not an easy path to navigate. So that was the path that led me essentially to where we are today. That is that of the anarchist, the marketing coach.
Well, so I listen to you, and first of all, graphic design. I mean, that ties right into marketing and
It
for
does.
what it's,
It's a
it's
crucial
really
component. Yes. Yeah.
exact. Yeah, it's the real thing, and it was actually, especially I remember like one of my teammates and partner in the business world. She that's her that was her background, and she was good at what she was doing in marketing wise.
Mhm.
Specifically, that was her thing, and she was actually leading marketing at that time. And so yeah, it fits right in. But you call yourself a practitioner of anarchy, and I love that you're a rebel, about things, and you took a very tough route. I mean, freelance. I mean, a lot of people like they prefer to do freelancing because they're not tied to anyone, but it is a
Yeah. You
tough
think
place to
it's
be.
it's like ultimate freedom. You're not tied to any entity. Who doesn't love that?
But you got to be disciplined. You have to have controls. You have to know what you're doing, and you got to treat it like a regular business, like operation. Otherwise, it will be
Hmm.
just like you're just someone who's hanging out with no aim, right? It's a tough place.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you found your way and you discovered a path here that is changing, businesses and how they think. Because again, marketing is a huge thing. And so I do want to ask you, in your humble opinion and expertise, you know, how do you define marketing? Because I've had so many definitions of it, like in your aspect
I'm
of
sure.
things to the public. Because really, like so like again, I was chief sales marketing officer, so like you run marketing, and what does that mean? So there's a lot of stuff, but there's always this overlay in between, as I said, sales and marketing, who leads who,
Yeah.
and all this stuff, and it's big. I mean, it's everything we know. I think. I mean, everything around us has some sort of market level. But like, what would you say to our audiences today? Like, here's a simple way to think about marketing today.
Well, it's a fabulous question, and I doubt not that you've heard myriad different definitions of it, especially like you yourself, Hurricane, and then all listeners. It's all over the place. The essence of it that I like to distill it down to is it is very simply a one-to-one conversation, whether it's a business speaking to another business or a business speaking to an individual, whoever that target market is. The reason I say it's a one-to-one conversation is because this business entity, the entity that is selling some product, some service, some solution, whatever, they need to know their market. In other words, the individual that they're talking to inside and out, so that they can speak to them as one would like a next door neighbor or a good friend. That is the vibe these days because we have so much connectivity that like we can go find a company that speaks our language better than another if we really want to. So that is what we need to do as individuals that need to sell, that need to market, is to understand our market so well that this becomes a friendly conversation. And not friendly as in like, oh, hey, how are you doing today? It's nice to see you. It's like I understand what you're going through. I understand the pains that you're, being weighed down by, like the economic things, the way that you drive your car, what kind of car you drive, stuff like that. It's like it's all useful information. So that's a very long way of saying the definition of marketing in my mind, it's a one-to-one conversation. And how you have that one-to-one conversation, that's up to you. It's based on your product and essentially who you're talking to. Now, sales to marketing, let's think about this like a family dinner. Like my family used to always get together for Thanksgiving, like back, like, we're all younger. We were kind of more central to like originally from Chicago. So we all kind of lived in the burbs. Everybody would get together, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, and sales to marketing. I think you suggested rightfully that there's always this, or maybe not always, but often this like confusion of, well, who's leading who? Okay. Grandma cooked dinner. Grandma's hosting. Grandma's the CEO. Grandma's building and leading this entire thing. You, as cousins, cousin one, sales, cousin two, marketing. You both have to clean the plates and get them over to the sink as fast as possible so grandma doesn't slap the shit out of you. Play nicely together so that grandma will invite you back next year. That's how sales versus marketing. There is no versus. It's play together, figure it out. If you don't, good luck.
Also, Kyle, I'm listening to you, right? I have to say
I
this.
get
I
heated
gotta
about this stuff.
No. Listen, well, this is what you do, right? It's passion, right? You're passionate about the work, and I think this is a topic for everyone because I don't get in person. We market and sell. In family, we market and sell. In business, we market and sell. Either we are doing it or somebody's doing it to us. You watch the news, you have both sales and marketing in your face. Somehow, somewhere. I mean, someone is marketing the products and whatever the services and giving you that communication. Which, by the way, that's really I have to say I've heard many different versions of what marketing is, but the way you put it there today, I mean, I think that shifts the whole concept because you made it so simple. It's really communication. It's that speech, that
Yeah.
talking to someone, and really that's what it comes down to. Like, are you communicating correctly? And communication is huge, and it is
Yeah.
part of like we hear this in the marketing departments. You have communication, corporate communication, and that's like the stuff that goes out to the world and
Yeah, the
very.
complicated component is that communication. It's like, it's what different tactics and methods are we using within that like underlying structure of, okay, this is the message and we have to get this to, X recipient. That's where it's more nuanced. And I think a lot of people probably add that to their different definitions of it. But definitions strip all that away because it's a part of it, just as graphic design is a part of marketing. I'm not throwing graphic design into that definition because there's so many different pieces to it. It's just, what is it at its core essence? That's how you need to think about it.
But I love it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. It's very simple. You talk to someone, you know, business to business. We're talking, strategy. We're talking, stuff.
Sure.
Why, and like I love what you said because actually that's really what makes a difference. Like, what is your pain? Well, I have a solution. I have a service. I have a product.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make that product, for you, or are you the right candidate for that product? And
Sure.
so,
Or are you even
and
aware that you have a pain that we're
that
supposedly fixing?
that is correct. That is actually the fact. Well, this is I think where a lot of I would say sales more than marketing. And I would say even to a distinct, level, I would say even marketing gets it a little off because, there's a lot of studies. There's like, and this is something I used to debate a lot, with the marketing teams when we were working together as partners. As you said, we're really supposed to work together. There's no them versus us because if that's the case, it's over.
Yeah.
Because if some one of us gets it wrong, nothing happens, and then the company doesn't, and grandma is not going to be very
Yeah.
happy.
Grandma ain't gonna be happy with you.
Literally, that's exactly right. But one of the things that we used to have, a challenge with personally, and you just may, spark something that you've already experienced in your work, is that so we're like my team is really, I mean, my sales team is in the field, right? So they're literally out there, first hands, connecting with the customers, clients,
Mm-hmm.
businesses, and I
Boots
mean,
on
in our
ground.
work,
Yep, they're doing
yeah,
it.
boots on the ground with the soldiers, right? The troops, and then so you hear everything, and so you bring in I guess the data, you bring in the intel back, but then you have the marketing team that does their own due diligence and do their market research and things like that. And they get a whole different, level of response or information and intel. So now we're clashing together. Like, well, that's not what we hear, but that's what the market says. That's what the surveys are saying. And so this is something that I've experienced, and getting it to kind of tune in and get tweaked to a point where we actually work
Yeah.
together. But I do love one thing that I've always, actually, I was always happy and proud to see the marketing leadership in general. The ones that succeeded are the ones who, for example, they see sales as a client, for example. They work with them as like, you're our client.
Yeah.
We're going to work with you, and so on and so forth. And by the way, so at a point when I had both divisions, that was for me, that was a cool thing because
Yeah.
now I know both sides of the game, and I can make them mesh nicely without any fights or without any clashes, and so on and so forth. Now, marketing
And
is
that's a very
brutal.
fortuitous spot that somebody at the top, at least in that instance, understands, all right, these are two crucial components and they can't clash. We have to combine this data set so that we can actually build something productive together.
Listen, I mean, and there's no company can succeed without those two components. I mean, yes, I mean, by the way, I want to preface this too because I'm a passionate person about sales and marketing, right? Because that's who we are as an entity. But also, I'm a big, supporter and champion of operations. Now, that's another area that is important because you can't. And I always give this analogy of the body, right? There's the brain, there's the heart, there's different organs, and they all have to kind of work together. I mean, I kind of always refer to the heart as the sales team because they pump in. That's your revenue, that's your beat. And then, but you have the brain is your marketing and all the stuff that's happening. You have all the other organs, that's your operations to keep the blood flowing, your kidneys are happening. So I kind of do a little bit of anatomy analogy there. And but it's really what it is. We all have to work together. But then operations can be running smoothly, but then if we don't get the market right, we don't get the communities, I guess the clients correctly, and so on and so forth, and the communication is not there. Which, by the way, I think that's where you come in. You already see that companies and most companies are really getting this thing wrong.
Yeah.
At least based on what I've read, and so why don't you guide us through your expertise? I give you a little bit of my personal experience, but
Mhm.
share with us, like, because you work with multiple clients, different levels. What really we have wrong in the business world today when it comes to marketing?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Sorry about that, man.
I'm, how do I answer this without without being canceled? Uh, uh
Diplomatically.
yeah, give me a second.
Take a minute, man. That's a one.
What's wrong with marketing these days? I think, well,
Boy.
okay. So here, first off, operations. I staunchly stand for operations. I'm not an ops guy, but what I do understand is the business can't exist without a solid product.
Yes.
That to me is led and crafted by operations. Those two are the you know interchangeable, if not the exact same thing. I don't quite know, but that's how important that is. Marketing and sales, those are secondary components to operations. Um, okay, this may be disjoint, perhaps speculative, but okay. So if we're so Meta recently had a loss in the court system. So they lost a case or two that really had to do with it. Like it's likened to essentially like what the cigarette companies were doing back in the day. Essentially, like they knew that their product was causing cancer, and they essentially had that data internally and continued operating as such. And Meta, I think the addictive qualities of the just doom scrolling and all that stuff, largely, I think that that was the basis for the suing entities saying, "Well, this is depression, anxiety. I'm just completely stricken with all of this." And so they like Meta lost these respective court cases, and I know that a number of other ones were hanging out in the wings, waiting to hear about how that specific court case would turn out. So now what I see on Instagram are ads for teen accounts, which I believe to be like a direct offshoot of essentially these court cases where now this suggests like teen accounts, you can only talk to people that you actually know. So in other words, like the human trafficking, the child abuse, the like all of that that is happening, this is a direct combatant to that. But I believe just based on timing that that would be a direct offshoot of the recent loss in court. But now all we see is just the do. We got teen accounts. How cool is that? Again, speculative, but if we're taking essentially like recent happenings and tying them to now what we're seeing online, it's like it was a pretty stark reality that they were kind of strong armed into this. So the initial question, I believe you said like what was wrong with marketing.
Well, yeah, I mean, what do the business getting somehow wrong things, in the process, and I
So
mean,
this is
that's
my
a good
root
example, by the
issue
way.
with marketing. It ain't telling you the whole truth. It never does. There's never enough time for it to. And that's how so many people get sucked into different scams and all this stuff. That's my biggest issue with it. That's why, quite honestly, I am a marketer. I am a coach. I teach people how to do this, and I despise it like none other because it's constant, it's omnipresent, and I'm not suggesting it's all a lie, but simply due to like the definition of today's attention span, we only have a couple seconds at best to just get people to do whatever we want them to do. We can't put enough information in there to give the holistic sense of whatever this is at first glance. So it's not that it's fake, it's not that it's fabricated, it's not that it's an outright lie. It's simply that you're not getting the whole picture. And it just requires you to just dig in and find out for yourself. And hopefully it's not a process that is damning to the individual that is curious. You don't have to sign things or you don't have to do any of that. That comes into business and operations. So it's in part the initial message that I take issue with, and in part operations. It's like, I promote good business practice. Whenever I use the word anarchy, it is rooted in good biz practice. Why do I use the word anarchy? Because I don't see good biz practice as being gospel anymore.
So Kyle, I'm hearing you, and you know what? You're right. So first of all, marketing is a lot of psychology, right? And to your point, messages take 30-second, segments, 60 seconds. I mean, in an ad, for example, there's only so much you can do. You still have to push, you still get the psychology, you get people to get hooked on things. But there is also the history of some I would say not so clear marketing, and we've seen it with the I guess with the cigarettes, back in the days,
Yeah.
and with the alcohol, with even the food industries, and what
You got
they
a dude
promise.
in a cowboy hat on a horse smoking a
Yeah,
cigarette.
it looked
How
good, man. I
cool
mean,
is that,
that was a
huh?
dream. Yeah, yeah. What is a fact, right? I mean, but years later, I mean, now you have this big sign, smoking causes cancer, but now we have vape, for example. That's a new version of things, but it's happening. There's marketing to it, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
sexy, but we do know there's a problem. But it is marketing, and unfortunately, it's like you cannot, as a business, you have to market your products. People have to know about you. But like, how do you do it now? For example, I come from a regulated industry. I mean, we could not even breathe without submitting anything to the government for approval. Just like in
Mhm.
pharma, in the insurance space, everything has to go through. For example, in my case, would be the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So I don't care if website, brochure, flyer, ad, whatever. The scripts got to go and get approved. And with that, I mean, by the way, I can give you a true story. One time, we got actually um, it was not misleading, but it was just like a certain mailer that we did, and we got like, hey, you can't use this. This is a tactic
Mhm.
that's because it looks official. Like, so the mailer was like an official, posting, whatever, like a
Yeah.
envelope that was mailed out,
Mhm.
and it looked like official, so you would literally open it quick. And of course, psychology speaking, when you see, and I think that's a lot of business practices in general, you get these red envelopes, yellow envelopes,
Mhm.
whatever, that like get you like to open up the first one because they highlight themselves off the pack. Now depends what part of the world you're in. I mean, mail is big in the US, we get a lot of it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in the insurance space, we have a whole 3 months worth of super mailers that come, all over. I mean, especially in the senior markets, I mean, seniors get bombarded, with
Yeah.
different things from all over the place. So it gets a little bit overwhelming. And to your point, it could be misleading because you can use certain phrases, you can use certain things that kind of elude an idea, but it's really not 100%. So it's kind of like it goes around things. So there's some tricks, to the mind to it, and I think that's really sometimes, to your point, what makes problems. And like in the case of what you just mentioned about Meta and some other stuff, it is because but this is what I can say
It
the
also
problem is.
largely it depends on the regulations that exist though. Like because
Correct.
for the insurance world, legal and all that stuff, like there are a lot of like there's roadblocks and we've had court cases to establish this stuff in a lot of different sectors in life, especially now with AI. It's still the Wild West. That's why we see all these wild tactics employed regularly, and that's why so many people are so pissed off with marketers. But sorry, continue, please.
No, no, no. That's a perfect point. That's the thing. Like, we're there's it's the world is adapting quickly to a lot of things, and companies have to. That's what I was gonna say. Like with the case of Meta and all these social media companies. I mean, when they started, they gotta promote themselves, and they did. They knew what they knew at the time, and they worked with it until, I mean, otherwise somebody tells them like, hey, this is not cool because you have enough complaints and so on and so forth. That's happening even like around the world now. I mean, it's not a secret that even with social media now in a lot of parts of the world, even the age, has, I think it spearheaded, somewhere else before it got to the States, where,
Mhm.
you cannot have an account unless you're 16 and over, whatever, some of the stuff to your point, because it prevents things like that. I mean, even the gaming industry, and the games, have been also in these lawsuits and things like that about because,
Yeah.
they're just, kind of
And you get the
change
whole
the kids.
disclaimer thing that you got to scroll through before starting any new game. It's like, raise your hand if you've ever sat there and actually read it. I'm not.
Well, that's a big one right there. Well,
Yeah,
Kyle, that is a big one. How many of us have signed tons of things on a daily basis, whether it's an app, whether this,
without reading it.
who's gonna read like 30, pages of legalese, language? I mean, I don't know. You can't even understand most of that stuff unless you have an actual lawyer and give it to them for a couple of weeks before they can actually go through the process. So
Yeah.
that's how it is. And we all do, but it's kind of geared to it that way. So to your point, you know, it's marketing is great. It's needed. It's mandatory. It makes a difference. But companies have, you know, this, I guess, dilemma of strategy versus messaging.
Mhm.
Is that really the what I'm getting? I mean, because you have to have a
Yeah.
strategy,
It's
but
it's a
then how do
great
you message it?
summation of it. Yeah. Um, because it's down to the human psychology component. At this point, the world is such, and largely we can point back to Meta for this, that they have crafted and curated this way that we just like suck in materials, content. And like, I'm an actor outside of marketing. This means that as actors, as storytellers, as filmmakers, we have to reconsider how we are sucking people into the initial, moments of whatever it is that we're producing, because people will just be bored. Like they'll be, I don't know, just scrolling on their phones, just doing whatever. I don't know, but uh, it's completely changed the inner workings of our little noggins. And so, marketers to filmmakers, we all have to think about this. And I should say, CEOs, as they employ the marketers inevitably. Um, how is that we can get the most possible information in the shortest possible amount of time? At a certain point, you can't get all that much information. That like a billboard is a very specific but probably good example here, because you're flying by at 75 miles an hour on the side of a highway. You're lucky to get 5 words in there. If you try to get anything beyond that, people aren't going to be able to see it. So, you know,
I'm laughing. It's funny you mentioned billboards because you know how many times we debated billboards as a strategy, on highways, and it's usually first of all you got to find the right placement, you got to get the right message as you said. You can only put some
yeah,
stuff. How many people are driving and taking a note of a phone number to call? There's all kind of stuff that needs to be considered. They're like they're all over the place, but
mm-hmm.
before the digital ones, it was even worse. I mean, at least with the digitals, you get to get a little bit more action in there.
You know
But
what
to
I
your
would say
point,
to this?
yeah.
I'd find a construction company, then find a specific section on the highway that is just problematic, and then align your billboard with that construction company. Just, oh gosh, we got to close 2 lanes here. Ah, darn. Slow everybody down so they have time. Then you can get 15, 20, you can get a whole essay on there.
Well, I love that idea. Well, it's funny because when you put a billboard, I mean, you have a call center, for example, expecting calls, right? I mean, like the I can say this from just experience, the odds of you getting calls from that billboard are going to be very little numbers on a
Yeah.
regular basis. Because I mean, for someone to maybe with the phones they take a snapshot and then maybe they call, and even if they forget about it, they call you like in a week or two, maybe they forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not really the best. It's really more branding than actually CTA or call to action. So you see stuff, it just kind of becomes visual in your mind, like you can see a sign of something, and it's always in your face. For example, the Progressive, Geico, you see the
Mm-hmm.
gecko all the time, so it's in your mind. Like you see beer, billboards, Heineken, whatever, Budweiser, stuff like that. So these are big ones, Coke, whatever these beverage company, McDonald's, so you don't really call them, but it's in your face, like so you kind of it's almost like subconsciously working with you.
The important piece, though, you're naming some of the biggest companies out there. Their marketing spend is massive, and so they have the ability to just do what we call the awareness ploy. Is like Yeah, we're not getting calls off this, but I don't know. People like a little gecko. Why not? Do it. They have the money for that. Smaller businesses and entities like that, that's what you have to consider because you cannot quantify what is an awareness play. So if you're smaller and you don't have that budget, then figure out what can you quantify, and that's going to help figure out, what's going to be a good direction to actually fund when it comes to marketing.
So, Kyle, so small businesses are the backbone, as we say, of the economy, right?
If they last.
And well, if they're less, of course. I mean, there's a lot of them, right? So certainly the big guys they can sustain, pretty much all the waves that come in the world, but the little guys, they usually are the ones who suffer the most because they basically making, budget, cuts all the time. They kind of reconfiguring their finances. I mean, it's hard until they get to a point where it's sustainable, but it's difficult. But you're right; they still have to produce some sort of marketing. I mean, even as simple as these flyers that they give in the community and the streets, and maybe have someone that gives flyers out in the street, which is very common in New York, for example. You
Mm-hmm.
walk around, in the corner, there's someone who's just handing out flyers with
Yeah,
coupons and things
but
like
you
that,
got to
right?
pay that person by the hour.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but it is a strategy. But now that leads us to that same thing. So the strategy is we're going to use XYZ, format. But what is the message to go with that? And is the message going to get us responses? I think
Yeah.
that's really the question. So what do you say in your expertise? I mean, you're the coach to these firms and companies. Like that something is off when they're not getting the results. So how do we get them to really adjust to get the results with the right messaging and avoid mediocrity, because I think that's something that you work hard to abolish.
And yeah, God forbid you land in a mediocre spot. Like mediocre in business ain't going to get you anything. So, like, here's the deal. Let's swing it back to that sales and marketing conversation because there was a really interesting point brought up at that juncture where essentially you said, like, all right, or sales specifically, they're out on the streets, they're dealing with the clients, they are getting like forms signed, and they are getting data from these different interactions that they are seeing themselves. These are boots on ground folks. Marketing, they should be researching the marketplace. They should be looking at competition, trying to figure out what are they doing, how are they doing it, what's their key messaging, what is it that they are claiming that makes them different, and how are they leveraging that in their marketing materials. Now, the two well could be different data sets, but this is where the power of having good data analysts or simply AI really comes in, because if you can objectively weigh all different opinions, because though they may differ, especially if you're still basing it off of existing competition in the marketplace that is a like product or service, maybe geographically they're based in a different part of the world, it's still viable information. And though contradictory may be, has to be considered, weighed, and if you can average it out, then you can kind of figure out, okay, well, maybe this direction is the best if you're going with the numbers direction, if you need to quantify everything. um, if you need to figure out how to, on a more like emotional level, try to figure out, all right, how is it that we're really different here, look at what the others are doing, weigh out your competition. This is the SWOT analysis, is figure it out, go build the data, look at what they're doing, and then look inwards to yourself being the business entity, regardless of how big or small it is. um, you need to have a very thorough understanding of what your mission, your vision, your values are, and as long as you can define those very clearly and simply, albeit, um, then that means that essentially any verbiage that you develop from there, any materials, content, whatever, call it what you want, then you can tie it back to those different components. And okay, as long as it relates back to the mission, the vision, the values, we're fine. As long as we're not crossing any like legal boundaries or, ethical problems along the way. Um, but that's the question. It's depending on the industry, how much flexibility do we have with the wordplay, perhaps? And I'll keep it just there because I think that metaphor is enough to get the point across. Um, so it's really just look at what else is out there and then look inwards. And then when you understand the differences, what they're doing versus what you would like to do or who you are, Then that's where anarchy comes in, because anarchy, in my vernacular, not by dictionary definition, dictionary, I believe, is just like tear everything down and just destroy it for no reason. Uh, Anarchy in my world is tactical differentiation. If everybody goes left and you go right, that means you're separating yourself intentionally at the right moment so that you can hopefully find yourself in your own blue ocean. Um, Now, I can go through the red ocean, blue ocean concept if you would like me to. I don't know who
Early.
your audience is,
Yeah.
but the red ocean, blue ocean concept very simply is like, if you're in a red ocean, that means there's competition. There's sharks that are just chomping away at everything. So there's blood in the water. You are not the only one doing whatever it is that you do. That means you have competition. You're fighting for your clientele, and there's less for you to be eating. Blue ocean, you're sailing pretty. That means you are the only one in your space of operation. Less competition, probably a hungrier market as long as you can find them and tell them what you're doing. Um, so that's the goal: is find that blue ocean of operation in business, and largely in life too. It's never a bad thing to stand out for the right reasons. It's a very key caveat. um,
No, it's okay. I'm listening to you. Now, you refer to vision or mission, when leaders, come up with whatever services, solutions, and stuff like that,
mhm.
and kind of correlating this to the ocean, red versus blue. I mean, if you pick the product that has the very competitive, I mean, you're certainly gonna be in a tough place. And I'll give you a good example. I mean, so my media company, you know. Someone can say, "Well, what's wrong with you? Like, you just this is a radio podcast. Okay, there's plenty of that." Well, certainly, there is a lot of it. But here's the thing. I still think I'm in the blue, and I'll explain why. Because while most media is news and entertainment and that kind of thing, I kind of veered out a little bit to a different angle. So we focus on wellness. And by the way, like I make the joke again over and over that there is a weather channel, we don't have a health channel. And so that sounds like how it all started, iHealth Radio, for example. So we need to bring something where we can put all that expertise and the health information in one place where people can actually search for it. Now, is there, I've been doing this for 7 years and I still don't have one serious competition about this, but there's a lot of talks out there, there's podcasters, and things like that are, but you know what? This is a platform where they can all come in as a medium, right? So that's the concept that I've tried to concept. So while there is a huge media world out there, I'm trying to find a little piece of that I guess turf, and just have
Mhm.
my little, booth in it, that is separate, unique, and different. And that's how we do it. So I obviously it's a little harder. You got to work on it. You got to figure out things. Of course, I expand it to a lot of areas and business. And the reason I do business talks and stuff, because again, a lot of health comes there's stress and things like that. And if we understand business well, I think we have less stress. So it impacts, our mental and physical health. So it's all ties in. Like someone's told me one
Yeah.
time, well, why do you do this stuff? Like it's got nothing to do with health. Like everything in this world has to do with your health.
If we got
Everything
humans
impacts
driving
everything.
any part of this boat, it has to do with health. I can
But see, that's like for me, that's how I see it, right? But then
yeah.
for leaders, that are out there, let's say they select something, you know, what is the solution to kind of navigate if they find themselves like, there's a lot of competition here. How do I, work on it? I think I get your just very easy, like, so you can still be in the same industry, but like figure out a certain, solution that is not out there yet,
Mm-hmm.
or a
Yeah,
way
it's
to promote it differently.
well, I think one term that is often used is simply niche down. Now, niche down really means understand yourself on a greater, more molecular level. But then, like if you're niching down and you're like, well, we want to kind of hyper fixate on like this crowd, then you got to understand, is this crowd going to be a viable marketplace? Is there enough money to enjoy whatever your product or service is? Can you get your product or service to a spot where it's easily reproducible at whatever scale for that specific marketplace? So, operations logistics is largely part of that conversation. Um, but a lot of that has to start with that internal look. What are we? What do we represent? If we need to go in a different direction, which, I mean, times are changing. You got to flex with the times. These things have to happen. So, can you flex? If you can, what is reasonable, viable, and operational?
Thank you, Kyle. Well, so let's talk about now uh, adaptation and change and shift, right? Because I think it leads to it's linked to what you just said. So we have traditional marketing, which we knew, like print, TV, radio, billboards, the old
Billboards,
stuff.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, the basics. And then you have the digital world now, and it's a whole different space with social media, new media. Podcast is another area now that is big with advertising and popping across in terms of not only just presenting businesses but also like ads on these things as a pre-roll, mid-roll, and so on and so forth. So it is a place where people seek information, and obviously it's a good place to place your ad or your messaging. So you have that. Then you have, like, you mentioned Meta and all stuff. That's all the social media. But now you have also the AI world. Like, companies, are they using AI? They're not using AI. So how do you kind of you know direct people from utilizing all these kind of venues or channels or means of kind of sharing their vision and communicating the message to the world? And sometimes what you're using one may not work on the other. So how do you explain that to the audiences? What can you say about that?
it's a great question. And the unfortunate true answer is it's really situational. Because all right, if you bring in AI into the discussion, like these days it's popping off, but it's happening very quickly. Like there's sort of three different ways because I often end up in these AI discussions, and there's sort of three different lenses that can be used to look at AI. One is as an investor. Good, go invest in it. As a business owner, CEO, president, leverage it. Chances are you can probably eliminate a lot of your staff, save a lot of money. They'll hate you. You don't have to be responsible for that, though. It's up to you. Creatives, anybody in that industry, and all industries creative, lobby against it. It's one of those weird things where I saw a post by some musician recently who's like, yeah, this specific company took my videos off YouTube, fed them into their model, and now their model is going after the copyright against me, the original creator. I don't know if this is factual. This is just the video I saw of her saying this. But
That's
this is a
scary.
very key instance because AI, um, I forget the actor's name, but he's known. He was in Inception. Oh, I should
Oh yeah,
remember it,
I
but
know, I know, I know he is.
yeah, he's
I think yeah. He's,
and
he's he's really going out there talking about this whole thing. Yeah.
yeah, and rightfully so. We need more voices in the mix that are educated and reasonable. And so he's talking about, okay, like AI, artificial intelligence is like seemingly by definition odd because we're, and I'm mostly paraphrasing what he's saying. So this is just me parroting. Um, he's mostly saying it's not actually this like fake intelligence that's just growing by itself. It's only growing because we've fed in existing materials so that it can grow at an exponentially fast rate, just faster than any human brain can ever develop. Um, and that's the problem. Because now, if these companies are just taking what exists and then claiming it's their own because they have the power of the law, what fucking incentive does that give the creator, the maker, the originator of said idea, notion, whatever? And that is a hugely problematic space, especially if that creator is not getting paid for it. So that's the consideration from a creative standpoint. That's why as the days continue to move forward, I say the other, the businesses, the investors, go invest in it. Fine, make all that money. But the creators, the individuals that are actually moving culture forward by creating new, novel things, by bringing concept, ideas, thoughts, notions into frame in a way that can be digested by people. That's the important stuff. And that's something that AI is not capable of doing right now. I will caveat. But if AI is also trying to take ownership over somebody else's materials, that's some real bullshit right there. Like, I will just absolutely outright say, like, this is why I will never, ever be able to back AI. even though I use it to, forward my ideas. And so this is why I say it's largely situational. As a business owner,
Well,
if,
no, go ahead, cut.
uh, oh,
No, go
uh,
ahead. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you.
like you're feeding data into a public domain. So legally, that is a suggestion right there. So when I say it's situational, be aware of that. Don't be feeding entire screenplays into it and being like, all right, well, make this better, because now you're feeding this into a public domain. And that is something that, like, if you say like, oh, well, it stole my material, well, that's not going to hold up in court because it's a public space that is now, like, everything that you feed it is training this engine. Um, so
Well, Focal, I want to interject you because
yeah.
you said you were an actor, and this is actually a big deal now in the I guess the acting world.
Mhm.
There's a huge kind of dilemma now because they do want to start using AI for movies and production and things like that, which is taking some of the talent stuff that's already out there and but here's the thing that I want just to add to that. To your point, I also use AI as tools. But you're right. I mean, understanding that whatever we put out, if someone takes that information, it's in the world, they're gonna take it, absorb it, and a lot of there's a
Yeah.
lot of debate about like companies training their AIs with our information and whatever we put out there, and it's learning faster, and so it becomes stuff. But here, I think this is where the distinction is, and I don't care what AI you're gonna put out there, it will never have the personality that an actor, for example, will bring in. It might mimic stuff. It might take something and just like a copycat, but it's not the original your emotions. And that's the other thing. Since you're talking about the topic of acting, actors are the best marketers out there. I mean, they can sell you emotions, they can sell you
We're good
ideas.
liars. That's the key.
Well, I wouldn't go to lying, but you create. There's a role, you live that role, you become the role, and therefore you sell the role for what it is. And so that idea is what makes people emotional. Some people cry, some people laugh, some people. I mean, it could be very dangerous and can be very positive. I mean,
Yeah.
we have people who have seen movies that are like, dangerous movies and kind of went in the street and emulate the same thing, right? But we have also people that laugh, and they enjoy, they have a good life, a good, time with
Some
their
movies
families.
have changed people's lives too, for the
That's right.
better
Yeah.
or
And
for
we
the
have
worse.
movies.
Depends.
We have That's right. And we have movies that are listen, I use movies for training,
Okay.
especially in leadership and situation and executive decisions, things like. There's a
Sure.
lot of movies like military movies, sports movies,
Mm-hmm.
awesome stuff. Disaster movies. These are areas where you can get some of the characters there, kind of build some character in a training component, and really like we debate things like we put a movie out, get some popcorn in a room, and we watch it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we dissect that movie. Like so what do you think? What
Mm-hmm.
what does this person do? Was that
That's
the
an
right
awesome
decision?
training tactic. I love that. That's so
Oh,
cool. Yeah.
it works, man, and it's fun, and especially like I'm telling you, like sports movies,
Mm-hmm.
war strategy movies. In the business world, they apply well, and so you can see like character, like sometimes tough decision. You're the leader, you're a manager, especially manager teams. You're the guy that's in charge or the gal that's in charge.
Yeah.
What would you do if this is your situation right now?
Here's a
Now,
complicated situation. What would you do?
and believe me, I was talking to my son just a couple of days ago, and I'm like, what would you have done in this? And what would I have done in this? And frankly, we had two different opinions about, what we'd have done in that particular situation ourselves. Because he's younger, so we were watching Private Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
the movie. Like it's a little classic, so
Mm-hmm.
not too classic, but it is a movie to watch. So kind of we catching up some, but it is a war movie, and just all kind of like stuff in it. But just an example. But again, going back to marketing, I mean, movies that really can, even sci-fi movies, that can make you live a whole different
Sure.
life. I mean, Star Wars is like one of those that have a lot of politics in it, but
Mm-hmm.
also has a lot of romance in it. There's all kind of stories in there within that whole parameter of the movie and the script of it,
Well,
and
heck,
it's
even the Wizard of
messages.
Oz, the guy behind the big
There you
curtain.
go. Yeah, it's amazing, but it's marketing, but humans are driving that. See,
Mm-hmm.
besides the script, if it's even if you have a script, if the acting or the role players are not really taking and really getting into it and becoming that character, it's not going to deliver. We've all seen some bad acting, and like what the hell? I mean, this
Yeah.
got no juice. I mean, this is like really bad. But then you have the movies like what the hell? You can't even tell that they're acting. It's like it becomes like real. Like you like what's going on. But it is marketing one-on-one, and they deliver messages. That's the other thing. Talking about messaging and sharing value. So an ad is a message that is
Mhm.
communicated to the public eye. A movie is just a bigger message, and there's a lot of
Well, movies
implicit.
largely are marketing too. Movies, documentaries. It's a fast because and this is where marketing gets much more sneaky. Like one of the Expendables movies, they have to get into a Chevy truck. And you'll note if you watch it, it's a commercial. It is so perfectly lit. It just has a ample amount of screen time. Why? Because Chevy paid him a lot of money to be able to actually produce this movie. So this is a marketing tactic, and that's why you see so many different products placed in the movies. That's why documentaries can say there was the like MH470 or something, like it was like that Malaysian airliner, the whole documentary about like the private investigations that ensued once the government investigation ceased due to funding, um, because essentially there was no answer that was rendered for why the airline actually went down. And at the very end of this 4-part documentary series, they had a call to action. They said, look, if you've made it this far and you still want to help support and help make sure that the spouses of the flight attendants of these individuals that were on this plane can have closure, donate so that we can keep these investigations going. That is a marketing tactic, but it's implanted at the very end of a long, emotional, data driven story that I believe is a spectacular way of doing it. Because if somebody has made it to the very last minute of something like that, that means they're in it to win, man.
Well, it's funny you don't. Yeah, this is real stuff. We see it all the time. I mean, a good example of a vehicle that has been almost iconic in most of the action movies between the Suburbans in
Aston
FBI.
Martin, is that where you're going with this?
Well, Aston Martin would be the
Oh,
one in the 007s, and we have also the Range Rovers that are like all over the movies. Either bad guys or
yep.
rich guys, that and the G wagons, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's in your face, and it kind of creates a good. It's very easy to sell your product just by having it on the movie. You got watches, for example, that you see on actors all the time while they're
Omega,
in a
if
movie.
we're harkening
Oh,
back to Bond, still,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it's in your face, but it is amazing, and it works because you see it and you feel like you want to be part of that, and kind of like, hey, listen,
Well, okay, but let's break down why it works though,
let's go.
because we're implanting it into this narrative that we know people are already bought into. And whether or not this narrative is really grounded in a sort of reality, some are so realistic. It's like, I could be saying like I'm promoting whatever it's Lacoste. I'm not, it ain't Rolex or anything, but yeah, it's implanted into a story, a narrative that somebody's bought into, and it just becomes part of that universe. It becomes part of the context. Context is what marketers are trying to figure out. If it's high fashion for women, okay, what is this lifestyle? How does our product fit into the world of these women? What is it that they're doing? What are they wearing? Where do they live? What do they eat? What kind of dogs do they have? What kind of G Wagons do they have? What year? I don't know. All this is a consideration. Movies, give it context.
An ad will be 30 seconds or a minute. A movie is 2 hours or an hour and a half that is full of a lot of placement,
Mm-hmm.
from I mean, everything is staged in a set. So it's not a coincidence you see something in the movie set. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a fridge in the kitchen. There's a brand. And here's the funny things, because in some of the international series and movies, what you'll see, they don't have approvals for some brands, and they'll actually have the emblems covered, whether it's on computers, cars, because those are not paid, ads or paid vehicles to be
Yeah,
utilized as a
they're
brand.
not
You
licensed.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, you can see exactly that what the car is, but there is no actual emblem, or insignia that actually shows what that car is, what that particular product is. So it's funny, but it is a real thing. So now let's talk about this, Kyle. The concept, right? Um, the communication. inside a company, right? Does it have an actual impact on when and how people interact with the product?
So you're talking internal communications.
Right. Well, so you have a vision. Now you have a team. People are strategizing. We're having a internal communication about communicating with the public, and whether we're going to get some action from whatever we're going to convey as a message or not. Do you find that a difficult place to be as a company?
Well, the first component is they're necessary conversations. There should be conversation about it because you have to develop the strategy, the implementation, consider the budget, application, all that stuff. Okay, that's all done internally. What is external and what should happen, because otherwise this is all useless. You're just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks. These days, because budget's always of the essence, regardless of whether or not you're Budweiser, Coke, McDonald's, any of these brands, the external conversation comes from the market research. And whether this is your internal team simply just doing quiet research themselves, or if you are literally going out and talking to individuals that have previously been your market or previously folks that you believe to be within the target zone for the type of person that you're trying to market to. um, all of that external data has to be weighed so that you can, as you're strategizing, take that to influence these choices that you're internally making for these external communications package. In other words, your marketing package. So
Yeah.
the answer is yes. Caveat: we need other people to give us key input, though.
So now let's talk about market, right? It is a very crowded market, as you said. It's a Red Sea. But what makes people pay attention to your message versus the others? I know you talk about the niche concept, but like, so you have a niche, that's your angle, but how do you highlight yourself? What is the strategy to do that, and how do we best make that happen?
This is, you're going to hate me for this because it's a non-answer to what should be an easily answerable question. It is entirely situational. There is no true like copy and paste roadmap to what works and what doesn't. You have to know yourself, in other words, your product, and you have to know the people that are going to be on the receiving end. Okay, who are those people? What is your product? And how are the two, how does everything play together? What those different communication channels are, and then within each channel. I mean, because if we're talking about social media, which we brought up previously, the way that we're seeing social media marketing evolve, grow, and become almost similar to this kind of the concept that we're talking about with movies, where it's within this existing narrative that people have already bought into, and then you just kind of throw it in as like a sidebar and like, oh, and hey, like there is this too, and I really like this. But back to the regular story, that little bit is right. That's enough for all of these viewers to be like, oh, hold on, like this influencer just mentioned that something is over here and it's intriguing them. If I'm so intrigued by them, then I should be intrigued by it too. That's how it works. And it's such an organic process that if the viewer isn't terribly conscious of it, which a lot of people aren't, because people are suing for just being depressed and anxious because of doom scrolling. It's a weird freaking world. But
It is. Well, so is it about being louder or being clearer in a message? I mean, at the
it
end of the
seems
day,
we're societally in a world where we value loud, which for somebody like me, I'm not a loud individual. That is wildly frustrating. Um, Succinctness to like carefully chosen verbiage seems to be highly devalued. I'm not suggesting anything. This is not me saying that I agree with any of that, but this is just the data that I'm seeing based on, I don't know, just about everything that's happening these days. Um, so I don't know.
so
It's all to
well,
say
well,
there's a lot of flexibility in the world. And
no, it is. Well, so now I know I mentioned something earlier, but you, you referred to a lot of noise today. So is it mostly noise marketing today, or is if, what kind of percentage of companies are really doing it right and not just noise that they actually get in it? I mean, just based on your expertise and your being out there and kind of seeing the real world in action.
Well, it's a good and fair question. I can't give you a true percentage on what companies are
Good
the
guesstimate, yeah.
loudest, or it's just there's a significant percentage of companies, and one of the foremost is leading the U.S. into battle, seemingly. Um, I'm not trying to make this political, but this is a prime example of how we value the loudest voice in the room versus the ones that may be more equipped to do what actually needs to be done. I know there's going to be probably pushback on that. Don't email either of us about that. This isn't a political show, but this is to say, okay, if we're trying to break it down, why is loudness so effective? Because there's so much. And if so much is traveling at this frequency, but then we hear a spike in it, regardless of what that spike is, the content, the validity of it, you hear a gunshot ring out, you can't help but tune into it. So, like, just psychologically speaking, that's how the brain works. It's that squirrel effect, and how you capture that squirrel effect and then manage to hold on to it and drag it where you want it to. That's up to you. So, I'll leave it at that.
Sorry. Well, so thank you. Now here's the thing. Looking ahead, just again, I mean, the future is young, and it's a long, space ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see marketing? I mean, is it going to evolve to something more, or is it going to continue to be what it is, and just people are going to work through it and figure out, how to best get into the psychology of clients and customers and consumers in general?
The psychology component's never going to stop, because that is the one really important ingredient to any successful messaging. You need to understand who you're talking to. And psychology, you don't have to get like scientific, you don't have to get molecular. You just got to be good at asking the right questions. And you got to establish yourself as this trusted entity. Now, it's how you go about doing that. That's up to you. I'm not advising on how, but um, okay. So if AI continues and grows as many would project it will and is, there's a lot of people that are like, dude, 10 years from now, it's going to be a wildly different world. 2 years. That's all. 2 years is going to be wildly different. 10 years, I don't even know what that's going to look like. Um, so if AI continues, if no lawsuits come about that say, well, this has been nice and we're glad that you all did what you did, but playtime's over. We have to shut it all down, unplug. Assuming that isn't the case, because I'm not entirely sure there is a case where that could happen, unless there's like a worldwide data breach and everybody is just like gone digitally. I don't know. Um, if it continues as it is, one way, especially in the marketing world, that I could see is to say, okay, so we have all like, as a business, if I'm a business, then all of the different people that make up my customer base, these are target profiles, individual profiles. So the individual from Jersey, the individual in Chicago, like, all right, each of these people is its own profile. That's a data set. That is a personality type. That is a lifestyle. That is a market amount of money that they are bringing in. That is, they buy X, Y, and Z products. Those data sets are how we design and craft our communication. Now, marketing for a team, you said you have a media company, so I don't know, the fullest extent of what you guys do, but for somebody who, like, I'm not saying I do it, but the video companies that have to come in and film all of the commercials that we see that are not AI strictly driven. For that video team to come in and do that, that's a nominal fee. That's just to come out and say, we will video whatever is it, the scripted stuff. Now, within marketing, there's A/B testing. A/B testing means that we can take different verbiage and essentially push that out into the market and see how the target demographic interacts with it. Is one more successful than the other? And then what is successful, you just go with that direction. So A B testing means we're buying more with the expectation that only some of it is going to be successful. Buying more means spending more. So all of this is a very long way of saying I believe that AI is essentially going to make capable this one-on-one conversation with original video and media development with very small budgets on a very small timeline. Because now you got to wait for the entire team to get like editing, post-production, pass it through legal and all these different teams. Now, if these marketing agencies just become AI powerhouses where they just say, all right, well, feed us your 150 different target market profiles, and then we will develop the A/B test friendly package for each of those. That means you got 150 iterations of that one campaign. I'm not saying any of that exists. I'm not saying it's even possible. Is it viable? Sure.
I mean, to your point, if as this thing keeps going and growing and growing, I mean, that's a possibility. And by the way, I love your I would say not a guesstimate, it's really a good prediction. I mean, the way it's been improving, it's fast, and even the people behind AI, they tell you that this is not something that's going to slow down. It's just going to keep learning quick. But here's a big point that I think you mentioned earlier that we need to highlight also, is that if all the creative stops, all the people stop putting input, then the data that is available to any AI will be limited in the past, and that's all there is. I think that's a big component there to really understand that when when it becomes too, I mean, I don't know if it can even create new information because it's supposed to learn what's already available that's fed to it. Now, maybe a model comes out that is super, smart, and it kind of, you know, uses all the stuff and kind of evolves on its own. I mean, that's a doomsday scenario concept, but it is viable as again as a possibility. Now, nobody knows that. That's the future. We don't know what it is, but let's again, it is a possibility, and we can leave it at that. Now I know we've talked a lot of stuff in the marketing, but I want to talk about you as a service provider, as a company. Let's talk about how can you help people, and how can people work with you so you can really deep dive into all the stuff that we just discussed today and
Yeah,
find like where the communication errors are they doing the right thing, is the visions correctly, what tactics, strategies, are they meshing correctly, are there leadership, sales and marketing teams, and operations all in line. How
absolutely.
can someone work with you? And let's share with that with our audiences.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the setup there. The,
No worries.
the um, it, take this conversation, the way that we've talked as objectively as possible without saying like we have, terribly skewed opinions for X, Y, and Z reasons. The coach is supposed to be an objective cheerleader. The coach is supposed to be this entity that instead of the marketer who simply does the job and is not incentivized to tell you how exactly they're cooking, but either way, you get the fresh cooked meal right in front of you and you can just nom, 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 eat it up. That's the marketer's job. The coach's job is to teach you how to cook so that you can understand it from that same perspective. And so you have that savvy to navigate the business field, whichever one you're in, with that same smarts, confidence, understanding of today's resources and how they kind of play into everything. So that's an objective conversation. It's just hop on the horn. We try to figure it out together, and the idea simply being take what exists savvy wise, yours, mine, and then I try to just do my darndest to teach you what I know within the confines of what is reasonable and viable for you, your company, your team, individual, whoever. Um, if you want to go through an entire digital marketing course, then I have what's referred to as a BA, a Bachelor's of Anarchy in digital marketing.
I
And
love
that
it.
is the entirety of my knowledge base just sucked up into a somewhat evergreen course, but yet there's it starts with the getting to know you and your company component so that we can still tie it back to your specific situation. So that's the real important bit is understand you, understand your market, and then we figure out within those confines where does anarchy come in and how do you employ that.
And how you work with CEOs, I guess, and CMOs, and
Mm-hmm.
people that are in charge of basically running the
Founders,
campaigns, founders.
entrepreneurs, the makers. The coach is an educator. And so whoever it is that I'm working with, these are individuals that are highly motivated to say, we don't want to hire another marketer ever, for whatever reason. Most of us are highly untrustworthy. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Um, but the the root is you don't want to hire another marketer because you want to learn how to do it yourself, or perhaps you would like to be able to hire smarter for
Do you understand
whoever's
that?
coming down the line. So that is the I mean, those are the teams, the situations that I am essentially designed for at this point.
And Kyle, I'm assuming worldwide is open, not necessarily just the US. I mean, this is an
Certainly.
online approach because I did see your website and it's pretty, cool the way you design it, and it's got good stuff in there, and you can just, hop on there and sign up and and
That's
and
it.
work a magic there. So yeah,
Yeah, and at the very least, just talk to me, and I'll figure out whether or not it's going to be a good match for us.
perfect. Well, listen, I mean, I know we've exceeded our hour, but this was an interesting, very different discussion because we actually, I love your style. I mean, you're open to different angles, and I guess that runs with the practitioner of anarchy.
It's
That's a good
exhausting considering so many different things.
one. Well, listen, you talking about different. You are different in your approach, and you're kind of bringing a different value to. It's the right value for people that actually want to change, but you just have a different angle about it. And I think that's you are different. You're in the blue ocean and not in the red. So you have your own thing. So, it is you preach, and you practice and you act on your preaches. So that's a good news. Not everybody does that, by the way, but I think I love that, and so I commend you for that. Um, all right, so well, listen, anything you want to leave our audiences, with? I know we're just about the end of here, but last message to the masses.
The well, if you want to get in touch, it's anarchyforaday.com, and that's FOR a day. Um, Give me a follow at kylemerrick.actor, and those are probably the easiest bets to get in touch with me directly if you want to talk marketing, acting, anything, whatever the situation is that's kind of leading you to the doorstep, then we're open to conversation. So um, if you want something more motivational, which might be a slightly more enjoyable sign off, um, just keep an open mind. There's a lot coming down the pipeline and a lot of weird stuff, especially in a pseudo wartime. I shouldn't even say pseudo, it is kind of wartime. Uh, it, there's a lot of stuff to be real disturbed by. Uh, I'm not saying there's any great solution to how to just get through that. I'm not saying hit the bottle, but just be flexible, be like water as much as you can and go with the flow. Accept whatever comes your way. If it doesn't work, just get out of the way and let it pass as much as you
Love
can.
it. Love it. God, thank you so much for the time, for being with us, for sharing some serious nuggets and insights on the world of marketing, and even some inspirational stuff for life. I mean, I think the last message here can be deep philosophy right now, and people can take it to the bank. I mean, there's a lot of to unpack in that particular one. And so folks, we're here at the end of the hour here. I'm your host, Hurricane H. I hope you had a good time with us, and with our guest, Kyle. I'll be talking soon. New day, new strong topic. Bye for now.
Hurricane, thanks, brother.